The steady beeping of the monitor echoed in the hospital room as I opened my eyes. The cold, white light from the ceiling forced me to blink rapidly. The pungent smell of disinfectant filled my nose, and my head felt unbearably heavy, as if I'd been run over by a truck. I tried to move, but my whole body was stiff. Then I heard a familiar voice ring out, "Joanna, you're finally awake." I turned my head and saw Kwana, my dearest best friend. Her eyes were red from crying, but the moment she saw me stir, her face lit up with relief. Before I could ask what had happened, she pointed toward the door. Look over there. That's your husband." Following her finger, my gaze landed on a tall man stepping into view. His shoulders were so broad they seemed to fill half the doorway. His calm, imposing presence chilled the air in the room by several degrees. His face was sharply defined, nose high and straight, and his deep, dark eyes were like bottomless pits, completely unreadable. He stood there in silence, saying nothing, just staring straight at me. I froze, then instinctively blurted out, "No way." "Husband? What are you talking about?" I like younger guys. You know, the sweet, clingy type who call me big sis, all puppy-like and adorable." My heart thudded wildly. Panic swelled inside me, and I clutched Kwana's hand tightly. Lowering my voice, I whispered as if he could hear me and swallow me whole any second, "Look at him. So serious, so cold, so tall. Just standing near him makes me scared. I could never stand a man like that." As I muttered complaints, I didn't notice how the man's gaze darkened. His brows furrowed slightly, and the air in the room seemed to freeze solid. I pressed myself closer to Kwana, trying to hide from that suffocating stare. "Kwana, are you sure you're not mistaken? That's really my husband? Oh God, how could I ever have married someone like him?" My question echoed in the sterile room, accompanied only by the mocking beep, beep, of the monitor. Not a single memory of the man before me surfaced in my mind. My head was blank, only filled with fear and disbelief. It was in that moment I realized I had truly lost 3 whole years of memory. And in those 3 years, somehow, I had ended up married to a man who was a complete stranger to me, cold, intimidating, and absolutely the opposite of my type. From the instant I understood that this icy man was my husband, every cell in my body screamed in protest. The more I looked at Bernard Corbett, the faster my heart raced, not from excitement, but from fear. His face was like a frozen mask, his eyes so deep and dark they seemed able to pierce through any secret. His entire being radiated pressure and seriousness that made me want to do only one thing: run far, far away. The moment Kwana left, the air in the hospital room grew even more suffocating. I clutched the blanket to my chest, scooting all the way to the edge of the bed, desperate to put distance between us. Yet he just stood there, his cold gaze never leaving me. Summoning every ounce of courage, I screamed in my head, "Run!" I quietly slid off the bed, my bare feet touching the icy floor. Step by careful step, I crept toward the door, praying I could slip out before the man reacted. But just as my hand reached the doorknob, a large, firm hand pressed down over it, shutting it back with force. "Where do you think you're going?" His deep, husky voice sounded right behind me, sending a shiver down my spine. I spun around, forcing a shaky, awkward smile to mask my panic. No, I was just taking a little walk." He said nothing, only bent down slightly so his eyes locked directly onto mine. In that moment, I felt like a helpless rabbit caught in the jaws of a gray wolf. My heart pounded erratically, my legs nearly giving out. And before I could think of another excuse to escape, Bernard draped a coat over my shoulders and spoke decisively. "Discharge. We're going home." Before I could protest, he had already taken care of all the paperwork. I found myself escorted into a luxury car, small and powerless like a prisoner, my mind spinning in chaos. I turned to the window, avoiding his gaze, one thought looping endlessly in my head. I have to find a way to escape. The car eventually stopped in front of a sprawling mansion hidden behind rows of towering green trees. My jaw dropped as the ornate iron gates slowly swung open. This isn't my home. My home. Actually, I couldn't even remember where my real home was, but I knew it definitely wasn't this luxurious. I'm not getting out. This isn't my house. I clung tightly to the seatbelt, refusing to budge. Bernard gave me a flat glance, his tone calm but firm. You've lived here for 3 years. I choked on my words. His large hand pulled me gently yet unyieldingly from the car, and I stumbled as I was led inside. Warm golden light spilled across the polished marble floor, reflecting off elegant furnishings. I couldn't stop myself from gaping at the grandeur and shivering at the unfamiliarity. He guided me up the stairs. With each step, my heartbeat grew more frantic until I halted before a familiar wooden door. He pushed it open and inside. I froze. Everything felt startlingly, painfully familiar. On the desk were the boxes of colored pens I used to love, sketchbooks filled with doodles only I could have drawn. The nearby shelf overflowed with manga and BL novels, along with rare collector's items I had once dreamed of owning. The large bed was covered with a duvet patterned with cartoon characters I adored. I stammered, voice trembling, how is this possible? A wave of bewilderment washed over me. Every corner of this room carried a sense of familiarity, as if I had lived here for a very long time. My traces were everywhere, from the half-finished sketch on the desk to the cat-printed mug resting on the window sill. I walked to the wardrobe and, with trembling hands, pulled it open. Inside hung rows of dresses, t-shirts, Lolita outfits, and even hanfu I used to love. Each one was perfectly my size, carrying the soft scent of fabric that made my heart pound violently. No way, I whispered. In that moment, a chilling realization struck me. Even though my mind was blank, my body remembered this place. I had truly lived here. I had truly been the wife of that cold man for 3 years. The first night in the mansion left me both bewildered and so tense I felt paralyzed. I tried to build a psychological barrier between myself and Bernard Corbett, but it seemed my cold, stoic husband didn't care in the slightest. It all began when I opened my suitcase to unpack. My troublesome best friend Kwana had stuffed in a few basic daily necessities, among them, a bright red pair of underwear I swore I never wanted anyone to see. I had just picked it up, intending to shove it deep into the bottom of the suitcase, when a large hand suddenly appeared in my line of sight. Bernard picked it up as casually as if it were a pair of socks, calmly placed it on the table, and prepared to fold it. Hey. Don't touch that. I lunged forward like a startled cat, both hands snatching at my treasure. He merely raised an eyebrow, the depth of his eyes glinting with a teasing light that made my skin crawl. We've been married for 3 years. Do you think I've never seen it before? My face went crimson, burning hot. No matter what, you can't. That's my private stuff. Private? His low voice rumbled, almost like a suppressed chuckle. I've washed them for you countless times already. I froze, utterly speechless, my cheeks scorching like fire. The humiliation peaked when, as he leaned down to slip the item into a plastic bag, I panicked so badly that I slipped, and crashed headfirst into his chest. A solid, muscular chest, warm and firm. The faint scent of soap mixed with his natural warmth made my heart race uncontrollably, but my survival instinct kicked in. I scrambled back up, face red as a tomato, stammering, I just slipped. Bernard said nothing. He tilted his head slightly, studying me with an unreadable gaze, then silently went back to folding clothes, yet the corner of his lips curved upward ever so slightly. I burned with indignation, feeling like I had just been toyed with by a wolfish man and couldn't fight back. That evening, the disaster wasn't over. Having forgotten to prepare pajamas, I was left with only one option: a crisp white dress shirt hanging in the bathroom, clearly Bernard's. Reluctantly, I slipped it on. The hem reached just to my thighs, leaving my bare legs exposed. When I stepped out of the bathroom and lifted my head, Bernard was already sitting on the bed, long legs crossed, chin resting on his hand, staring directly at me. His dark eyes swept over me from head to toe, heat instantly flared across my skin. Annoyed, I planted my hands on my hips. "What are you staring at? Never seen a woman before?" "Seen plenty," he replied flatly, his deep voice blending with the air. Then he leaned forward, his gaze carrying an undefinable trace of danger. "But, only when I look at you do I never get tired." I wanted to sink straight into the floor. To hide my fluster, I puffed my cheeks and tilted my chin up. "Don't get any ideas, Uncle." The room's atmosphere dropped in temperature at once. Bernard's brows furrowed, his eyes darkened. He emphasized each word, "I'm 32. I am not an uncle." I pouted. "I'm 25. Subtract the 3 years I forgot, my mental age is 22. That makes an 8-year gap, clearly you're an uncle." In that instant, I knew I'd poked right at his pride. His face turned as cold as ice, so chilling it sent goosebumps down my back. I snapped my mouth shut, dove onto the bed, and grabbed a pillow as my shield of survival. That night, I rolled the blanket into a Berlin wall, splitting the bed in half. Not stopping there, I rummaged through the drawers and found a wrench. I waved it threateningly. "If you dare cross this line, don't blame me for what happens." Bernard only spared me a glance, said nothing, and headed for the shower. A few minutes later, the bathroom door opened, steam spilling out, and Bernard walked out, shirtless. The bedroom light cast shadows across his broad shoulders and sharply defined six-pack, droplets of water trailing down the ridges of his muscles. I swallowed hard, but forced my voice louder to keep face, "Pervert. Put a shirt on right now." He calmly towel-dried his hair, voice low with a faint trace of amusement. "You're the one who used to tell me not to wear anything when coming out of the shower." I choked, my face burning hot. Good grief, what kind of person was I in the past? Even though I was rattled, I stubbornly held my ground. When Bernard took a step closer, I jumped up and shouted, "I want a divorce. I can't live with a dangerous uncle like you." He froze for a split second. In his deep eyes flickered something impossible to name, perhaps hurt, perhaps restraint. But he said nothing more, only turned slowly, lay down on the bed with his back facing me. In the darkness, I curled myself into the blanket, heart pounding wildly. One thing was clear: this man was frightening, impossible to understand, and made me want to run away. But I also sensed something else. No matter how much I rebelled, Bernard endured it all, as if I mattered more to him than any pride he possessed. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, pulling me from sleep. I opened my eyes and instantly remembered, I was still trapped in Bernard Corbett's wolf's den. My whole body stiffened, and one thought echoed in my mind: I need to get out of here. In just 2 short days living in this mansion, I had experienced every emotion possible: confusion, embarrassment, anger, and fear. Bernard was like a living iceberg, quiet, cold, and suffocating with pressure. He never hurt me, but his silence and the heavy weight of his gaze left me breathless. I thought back to what I used to like: sweet, clingy younger guys, like puppies who couldn't leave my side. In comparison, I felt like a little bird trapped in a golden cage, and its owner was a giant wolf dressed in an impeccable suit. That afternoon, after Bernard left for work, I sneaked into the study, opened the laptop, and searched for a template: a divorce application. "Divorce means freedom," I whispered to myself as I typed, fingers trembling. The small printer beside me buzzed and spat out crisp, white sheets bearing the words "divorce petition." Clutching them tightly, I felt as though I was holding the key to my own escape. That night, I waited. The moment Bernard stepped into the living room, I rushed forward and blocked his path. Warm yellow light fell across his handsome yet weary face. Taking a deep breath, I shoved the papers in front of him. "Bernard Corbett, I want a divorce." The room went deathly silent. He stood still, those deep eyes locked on me without blinking. 1 second. 2. 5. My heartbeat grew erratic, fear creeping up my spine, but I forced myself to swallow and stay firm. After what felt like an eternity, his low voice finally broke the silence, chilling enough to send shivers down my body. "You want to leave me?" I bit my lip and nodded. "Yes. I don't love you. I don't remember anything, and I can't live with someone like you." In that moment, I watched the light vanish from his eyes. His broad shoulders trembled slightly, and then he bowed his head, his voice hoarse as if strangled. "Because you don't love me?" "Yes." The word came out shaky, my voice trembling, my chest tightening painfully for reasons I couldn't explain. A single droplet hit the marble floor, so small, yet in my ears it boomed like thunder. I couldn't tell if it was water dripping from his rain-damp hair, or a tear. Bernard drew in a deep breath, then lifted his head. His face was once again calm, cold, and expressionless. But the faint redness around his eyes betrayed him. "All right. Joanna Richardson, you've only forgotten. I can wait." His words cut into me like a blade. My throat closed up, leaving me speechless. Bernard turned and walked out, without even taking a coat. The heavy doors slammed shut, leaving me frozen in place with nothing but a few white sheets of paper in my hands. I ran out to the balcony, watching his car disappear through the mansion gates. An emptiness spread through my chest, laced with unease. "This is good," I told myself. "I'm free now." But tears slipped down my cheeks in silence. That night, the vast mansion was drowned in quiet. I lay on the luxurious bed, my heart hollow as though swept away by the wind. When I looked up at the ceiling, all I could see were Bernard's red-rimmed eyes, haunting me. The next day, I decided to leave the mansion, dragging my suitcase to Quanah's place, hoping for some sense of familiarity. But the scene that greeted me when her door opened nearly knocked me off my feet. Quanah stood there in a bathrobe, her neck and shoulders covered in red marks. Behind her, a tall man wrapped his arms around her waist, lowering his head to kiss her neck. I stood frozen for a few seconds, then quietly turned, pulling my suitcase back toward the mansion. There was nowhere else for me to go. That evening, the housekeeper set the table and spoke gently. "Miss Joanna, tomorrow is your parents' Memorial Day. Sir has already prepared the flowers and offerings. He'll take you there in the morning, just like every year." I went still. He remembered my parents' memorial, prepared everything. And yet I had thrown cruel words at him, saying my parents would ruin his life if he hurt me. The thought made my eyes sting hot. That night, sleep eluded me. Bernard's bowed head, his reddened eyes, and his quiet words echoed endlessly in my mind. "I can wait." A strange emotion welled up inside me, guilt, yes, but also a terrifying fear, the fear that I had wounded someone who truly loved me more than his own life. The next morning, the sky was overcast, a thin mist veiling the garden outside the mansion. I sat in the car with Ben, Bernard's driver, on the way to the cemetery. My chest was heavy, weighed down by both the memorial and the tangled fragments of memory that no longer aligned with reality. As the car rolled down the gravel path, past rows of birch trees shedding their leaves, I spotted a lone figure standing motionless before a familiar gravestone. Dressed in a black shirt and slacks, Bernard held an umbrella tilted toward the stone to shield it from the rain, while he himself stood just outside its cover, letting the heavy drops fall onto his shoulders. My steps slowed. A strange ache rippled through my heart. It was Bernard. He hadn't noticed me approaching. He simply stood there, head bowed, his low voice blending with the sound of the falling rain. Father-in-law, mother-in-law. I don't know what to do anymore. Joanna, she said she doesn't love me. She even calls me uncle. 32 years old, forgotten and despised by my own wife. It hurts so much. I held my breath, my whole body frozen. Every word he spoke pierced straight through my chest. He continued to whisper, his voice growing softer and more fragile. Before, she used to hold me every day, always smiling, always clinging, saying she couldn't live without me. But now, she looks at me like I'm a stranger, and she wants to leave. I'm terrified that one day she'll walk away for good. I don't know what to do. I can't live if I lose her. A chill spread down my spine, and I couldn't stop the tears from spilling over. The man I had always thought of as cold, frightening, and heartless was hurting this much. He loved me so deeply that he was willing to bear all his weakness in front of my parents' grave, people who were no longer alive, as if only here could his true heart be seen. I couldn't hold back any longer. I ran forward and threw my arms around him from behind. Stop, please don't say any more. I won't leave you. Bernard stiffened, his shoulders trembling. One hand tightened around the umbrella, while the other slowly grasped the hand I had wrapped around his waist. Rain poured down in torrents, soaking our hair and clothes, but in that moment, I no longer felt cold. I'm sorry. I was just too scared. I don't remember anything, but my heart can't bear to see you in pain. My voice broke, choked with sobs. Slowly, he turned to face me, his eyes carrying the weight of 1,000 waves. Rainwater mingled with tears, rolling down his face. His large, steady hand lifted my chin. Joanna, don't leave me again. Then his lips pressed against mine, wet with rain and heavy with years of pent-up longing. The kiss wasn't fierce, it was trembling, pleading, desperate, and it made my heart ache. I closed my eyes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and let the familiarity of him fill the empty void inside me. On the way back, I leaned against his shoulder, the sense of safety I had always denied now overflowing. Bernard's hand tightened around mine as if afraid that if he let go, I would vanish. In that moment, I swore to myself, I have to remember. I have to find the 3 years of happiness I've lost. That night, lying in his arms, memories suddenly came rushing back like a tidal wave. I saw myself 3 years ago, a freshly graduated girl, fired from job after job, making ends meet by delivering food all over the city. I remembered the grand mansion that placed the same order every day, fried rice. I remembered the first time I stepped into that eerily silent house, the stench of blood filling the air. On the bathroom floor, a man lay unconscious, his wrist slashed and bleeding. It was Bernard. I remembered calling for an ambulance, rushing him to the hospital, and the long days that followed, scolding him, forcing him to eat, to take his medicine. I remembered the first time he ate the fried rice I brought, how tears fell into his bowl because the taste was exactly like his mother's cooking. I remembered every shared moment of living together, every petty argument, every embrace in the dead of night when he shook from nightmares. All of it returned, vivid and painful. I opened my eyes and broke into sobs in Bernard's arms. Startled, he looked down, eyes filled with worry. What's wrong? Did you remember something? I nodded, clutching him tightly. I remember now. I'm sorry. I love you. Bernard held me close, so tightly it felt like he would never let go. He said nothing, only buried his face in my hair. In the tremor of his breath, I heard my own heart answer, this time without fear, without doubt. Through the storm and the tears, I had finally found the 3 years of happiness I'd lost, and I knew from this moment on, I would never leave his arms again. That night, lying in Bernard's embrace, I felt as though I had just survived a long, raging storm. The warmth of his body spread to me, steady, unshakable, safe. I closed my eyes and let the memories return like scenes from a slow-motion film, each fragment falling neatly back into its rightful place. 3 years ago, I was just a girl who couldn't hold a job, stumbling through the vast city. After graduation, I was fired from 5 different positions because I didn't fit in, too impulsive, too reckless. To pay the rent, I signed up to deliver food. Day after day, in a blue delivery jacket, I rode my old scooter through crowded streets, scraping together loose change just to survive. One day, there was a peculiar order: fried rice from a small restaurant, delivered to a grand mansion in the suburbs. Nothing unusual in itself, but strangely, every single day, at exactly 12:30 noon, the same address ordered the exact same dish. The first time I delivered, I thought perhaps the wealthy owner was simply too lazy to cook. For 5 months straight, I grew familiar with the route to the mansion, even with the way the housekeeper would take the food at the door, never letting me inside. But then one day, the order stopped. An uneasy feeling rose in my chest. For reasons I couldn't explain, I rode my scooter there and stood before the silent gates. I rang the bell, no answer. Tentatively, I tried the handle, and found it unlocked. Inside, the house was so quiet it was eerie. A metallic tang lingered in the air, making my heart hammer. I climbed the stairs, opening doors one by one, until I froze. In the bathroom, a man lay motionless, his wrist drenched in blood, red pooling across the cold tiles. A shattered phone lay beneath the window. In that instant, instinct propelled me forward. I called for an ambulance, hands shaking as I tried to stem the bleeding. That man was Bernard Corbett. The days that followed blurred into a string of disjointed yet vivid memories. He lay in the hospital bed, his eyes empty, distant, filled with shadows. When I asked him why he had done it, he answered flatly, "No one needs me. There's nothing left to live for." Those words struck me like a blade. I understood that feeling. When my parents died, I too had sat alone in an empty room, convinced I was nothing but a leftover piece in the world. But I had chosen to keep living, while he had chosen to give up. Anger surged in me so violently that I slapped him. "Idiot! You owe me your life, and you haven't even paid me back for the hospital bills." From that day on, I became the nuisance in Bernard's life. I brought him meals and forced him to eat, made him take his medicine, told him jokes, played comedies on the TV, and even slept on the chair beside his hospital bed, afraid he might do something reckless again. Gradually, he began to open his heart. One time, while eating a spoonful of fried rice I had bought, tears streamed down his face. He told me the dish tasted exactly like the fried rice his mother used to make, and that he missed her so much it felt like every day was an endless plunge into darkness. I didn't say anything, just quietly placed my hand over his, to let him know he wasn't alone. After he was discharged, Bernard appeared unexpectedly at the door of my shabby rented room, dressed neatly in a suit. He asked a question that changed my life: "Do you want to live with me?" I had laughed out loud, thinking he was joking. But the seriousness in his eyes made my heart tremble. In the end, I agreed, partly because I wanted to keep an eye on him, partly because I had already grown used to his presence, and so our life together began. I turned the cold, empty mansion into a place filled with laughter, cluttered with manga, coloring pens, and clothes strewn everywhere. Bernard, once a block of living ice, gradually thawed. He learned to smile more, to tease me, to open himself up to the world. And one rainy night, when I clung to him trembling from a nightmare, he pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. That was when I realized, my heart already belonged to this man. The memory surged back like a flood, sweeping away all my doubts. I lifted my head to look at Bernard, tears glistening at the corners of my eyes. "I remember everything," I whispered. "These 3 years, we were in love, weren't we?" He nodded, holding me tightly in his arms. "I've been waiting for you to remember." In the days that followed, I became more proactive than ever. I apologized, trying to make up for the pain I had unknowingly caused him. Together, we cooked fried rice, the dish that had once tied us together. I cleaned the room, hung up the unfinished paintings, as if inviting those happy memories to return. One evening, I watched him from the balcony, the golden sunset falling across his broad shoulders, and suddenly realized, this man was no longer the terrifying wolf I once feared. He was my safe haven, the place I belonged. I walked over, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "Bernard, thank you for loving me, and thank you for waiting for me to come back." He turned slightly, his gaze gentle. "I once thought if I lost you, my life would be over. But now, I only want to live longer, so I can love you over and over again." We kissed in the glow of the setting sun, no more rain, no more tears, only the rhythm of two hearts beating as one. All the misunderstandings melted away, all fear of parting turned into a vow of forever. I knew, from that very moment, our marriage had entered a new chapter, not of doubt or distance, but of two souls once lost, finally finding each other again.